Let's go ahead and unmute.
Recording in progress.
All right, at this time, I'd like to call the Crystal City Council meeting to order. Let's start with roll call, please.
Mayor Adams.
Here.
Councilmember Budashevsky.
Here.
Councilmember Cummings.
Here.
Councilmember Idbo is absent. Councilmember Kamish.
Here, I think, are we muted?
Says we're not. Let's try it again.
From the top.
Yeah, this wasn't showing muted, so I apologize, but yeah, I guess call to order again.
From the top. All right. At this time, I'd like to call the Crystal City Council meeting to order. And let's start with roll call, please.
Mayor Adams.
Here.
Councilmember Budashevsky.
Here.
Councilmember Cummings.
Here.
Councilmember Idbo is absent. Councilmember Kamish.
Here.
Councilmember Kaiser.
Here.
Councilmember Onessa Rosen.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, let's rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have an agenda before the council. Looking for a motion to approve that agenda. John, thank you.
So moved.
All right, looking for a second. Therese?
I'll second it.
All right, all members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We have a consent agenda. These are routine and non-controversial in nature. Pass that in a single motion. I'll read that into the record at this time. Approval of the minutes from the following meetings. The work session from March 14th, 2024. A work session from March 19th, 2024, and a council meeting from that same date. Approval of the list of license applications submitted by the city clerk to the city council. That list is on file in her office. Adoption of a resolution accepting donations. Adoption of a resolution establishing dates and offices for the 2024 municipal elections. The acceptance of Tom Slupske's resignation from the Inclusion and Diversity Commission. Adoption of a resolution authorizing Met Council Environmental Services 2024 Private Property Inflow and Infiltration Grant Agreement. And then last item is adoption of a resolution revoking the commercial kennel license issued to Posh Pets Minnesota LLC, doing business as Pet Supplies Plus. Looking for a motion on that. John?
So moved.
Thank you. Therese? I'm sorry, Tracy.
I will second.
All members in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Next is open forum. I believe we have somebody wishing to speak during open forum. You guys ready? All right. What I'll have you do after you speak to the council here, there's a yellow sheet that's in the entrance. I'll have you fill that out with your name and stuff. But at this time, Tisha and Jamil, is that right? Jamal, okay. You're welcome to step forward and speak.
Sure. Kind of introduce. Well, I'm Taisha, and this is my husband, Jamal, and we are the owners of Ambiance Cafe, and we just recently reopened the cafe portion about a month or so ago, and we were asked to kind of come here and explain kind of what Ambiance is and what we kind of do down there. So a little bit about Ambiance. We're just kind of not your ordinary cafe. We wanted to put a space into Crystal where people were able to kind of come unwind and relax from the busy outside world, just having a space that's more peaceful and relaxing, kind of different than your ordinary cafes, and they can come in either with friends, family, or just kind of have time to themselves to kind of just unwind, do some work, or just read a book, do just something where they can kind of just relax while enjoying a meal or a slice of cheesecakes. We do offer some great cheesecake and either a loaded lemonade that's loaded with fruit and stuff like that. So just a space where people can kind of come in and kind of relax. And we do offer private events that's after our normal business hours, because that's where we're kind of getting in a conflict there, where we're kind of open and closing, and people weren't really sure what our hours were, because we were having to close for private events and then opening back up. So we kind of had to kind of step back to figure that out, so people wasn't so confused on what it was that we were actually doing there. And then we also offer that we're trying to bring back into like a therapeutic sessions, where people kind of relaxation sessions where they can come in and just kind of journal, or depending on what the thing is for that night, journal, read a book with tea, or listening to R&B music or jazz, and just having that kind of relaxing ambiance there. So that's kind of what we do over there. And I don't know if Jamal wants to say something.
Yeah, she pretty much wrapped it up. Yep, so we opened back recently, so we just, a lot of our people that we did have, and just kind of happy that we, got back to it. So, yeah, she basically.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys have any questions for.
Sure, yeah, we'll come up with questions, absolutely.
All right, awesome.
First question is, what are your hours now?
Our hours, we are open, we're closed Monday and Tuesday, and then we're open Wednesday through Saturday from 11 to 6 p.m., and then Sunday 11 to 4 p.m.
All right. Tracy, did you have a question?
It was that, and then just, I was gonna ask what meals, but it must be lunch and supper.
Yeah, more of that. Yeah, so we do a lot of, we still got burgers, different type of burgers. We do different type of Phillies. We got Cajun and jerk Phillies, your regular Phillies, and then we have rice bowls. We have
Subs and wraps.
subs and wraps and paninis, and then.
Do you have like a coffee drink menu, or?
So we kind of stepped away from our, because we were, and then that was the thing, so then sometimes we're kind of busy, we're not busy, so we're kind of stepping away from coffee, trying to just having a menu where we're not being so wasteful. So we kind of cook to serve, and then sometimes we'll make coffee, and it's kind of just sitting there, because we wasn't getting a lot of traffic for coffee, so we kind of stepped away from that. And then, like you guys were discussing, I know we have Dunkin' Donuts that's coming across the street, so we kind of feel like it might be best to kind of just do what we're doing and kind of be a little different than in that aspect. Yeah.
All right.
I remember when you opened, it was like in June, right, on a Friday night?
Yeah,
And didn't you have your kids serving?
Oh, yep.
Oh, it
Sure
was
did.
delightful. I'm glad to see you back.
Yeah.
Welcome back.
Well, thank you, yeah.
Yeah, we like to have people come back and use it for their own promotion, as, either remind people that you're still there, or if you, for what you guys have done, you've had a little bit of a change, let everybody know and use it for yourself as a promotion. So don't be a stranger, come back whenever you'd like.
All right.
This is a great opportunity for businesses to come and do that type of promotion. There are people that watch this on TV, and it's just a way of doing that.
All right.
And they do like Philly cheesesteaks too, so I'll probably be there.
Yeah, and then we do have the options where you can choose your meat. So we do have plant-based. We got beef, shrimp, and chicken. So it's kind of a little bit for everybody. We can do that for all the meals. So we do different stuff, gluten-free stuff, and all that. So.
Oh, sweet.
All right.
Any other questions?
No, good.
Well,
right.
thank you guys for
Thank you
having
very
us. We
much.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. And you really don't need to stay unless you're interested in what we're doing. Feel free to- Yeah, you're welcome. If you could fill out a card quick and then give it to Chrissy over here. Thanks. Anybody else wishing to speak during open forum? Seeing no one else, we will close open forum. Start our regular agenda. First item on the regular agenda is disbursements of $25,000 or greater. I'll read those into the record. We got just a few this week. Core and Main LLP for the census radios for utilities, $38,545. Golden Valley Joint Water Commission for January water charges, $166,501. At Council For environmental services, water services for April, $143,220. IRS for electronic payments, federal and FICA withholding tax for paydate 3/15/24, $69,449. Min-para for employee city required contributions for the same pay date, $73,011.56. Total disbursements of $25,000 or greater is $490,728.18. Are there any questions from the council on any of these items?
I don't have a question, but it's really nice to see a light month.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen some heavy ones.
Month's not over.
That's true statement, yeah.
Touche.
But, you know, keep in mind, this is our budget. So that's where it's at. All right, looking for a motion. Taji, go ahead.
Thanks. I'd like to make a motion to approve the list of disbursements of more than 25,000.
All right, thanks. Therese?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Next, the council will consider a resolution approving the joint powers agreement for the 2024 utility reconstruction project. Our interim public works director and city engineer, Ben Berkey, is here to address the council. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. So this joint powers agreement is for the 2024 utility reconstruction project with the city of New Hope, Louisiana Avenue, from 27th Avenue, Medicine Lake Road up to 32nd Avenue is the main part of the project, which is a shared road with New Hope. We also share utilities on that road. And then the 31st Avenue cul-de-sac is completely in New Hope. New Hope has included this work in their budget, and as part of my memo to you, there was also an inclusion of the spreadsheet kind of tabling the cost between the two cities, and New Hope will be reimbursing us for $1,444,987, which also includes an additional 20% for admin overhead as part of the construction process. And then this is modeling a similar agreement that we've used in the past with the city of New Hope. So tonight I'm looking for a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the joint powers agreement with the city of New Hope. Any questions?
Questions? Go ahead, Therese.
I am not sure if this is the right time to bring it up, but you're aware that there's a neighborhood group along Louisiana that really wants something done with the traffic. And why can't we put a stop sign on 30th to slow traffic down?
On 30th coming into Louisiana?
Well, either put it both ways.
Talking about on Louisiana.
On Louisiana.
At 30th.
At 30th.
So for us to slow down traffic, our method when we do these projects is to narrow the roadways, which we're doing as part of this project by adding that sidewalk and taking away one of the lanes of parking. Mm-hmm. Studies have shown that when we start adding stop signs, it decreases speeding at that instance, but then the people that want to speed are going to speed out of that stop sign, and then we're going to start getting noise complaints for vehicles being loud and speeding away. And it doesn't really control the speeding of any sort when we start adding stop signs. Plus, this is a major trucking route for all the commercial properties in New Hope, and adding a stop sign is just going to slow them down and slow traffic down.
I think that's the complaint from the residents along Louisiana, that there's so much truck traffic and people speeding. I mean, it's not a long stretch there. It's a half a mile from 32nd to Medicine Lake Road, right? And so both of those intersections are stopped, with stop signs. Mm-hmm. I just, seems to me a pretty simple solution, but you know a lot more about this stuff than I do.
It's a reasonable question to bring up. I understand where the community is coming from. It's one of those things where we are trying to keep traffic moving, and adding stop signs just keeps slowing it down.
Half of that street is residential. Why are you trying to keep traffic moving?
Because it's also the commercial route. It's a state aid road, and we want to keep it moving.
I don't think adding a stop sign there is a huge deal. I don't know. How do other people feel?
Well, adding stop signs, I mean, everybody knows we got rid of a bunch of stop signs. And that was one of the bigger complaints from some of the neighborhoods. When that was introduced to us, it was introduced to kind of go to a national standard, which had been presented as number one, a safer way of doing it. And adding some of the yield signs in some of the places is just as safe as stop signs. In this particular place, especially with the trucks, I think Ben's point is very valid, because when trucks start, that's when they're making the most noise. And that's going to be significant, I think, at a stop sign in that half residential area. I don't necessarily support putting in there, it's a three-way intersection, right? North, south, and then coming in from the east. I'm not sure if that's gonna solve all the issues. And
I don't think it's possible to solve all the issues. What the consensus I got from the couple times the group has come before us is that most of them had lived there before it was industrial on the other side of the street, and they just want a quiet neighborhood back. That is not gonna happen. But we could make it safer there. I mean, we heard two different stories of how people were trying to pass them as they're stopped to pull in their driveway. They don't feel safe in their own neighborhood. And I think it's just a pretty simple solution. John has a question.
yeah, go ahead, John.
Also, what about a solar-powered, speed sign that tells you how fast you're going? Is that possible to be added to this project?
At this point, it would be a change order, just with the item I have next on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
So that would be a pretty significant change in making sure that we'd be able to add something like that. And then it would also be getting an agreement with New Hope, because if we did something like that, we'd want it facing both directions. I guess, Brian, do you have any knowledge of police putting out the speed sign on Louisiana?
Well, not that one. I mean, like, for instance, I've seen them. Well, I have one in my neighborhood where it's actually just a solar-powered sign that says how fast you're going. It's connected to a utility pole, and it makes a difference in terms of, traffic that's traveling on the street. So that's what I'm looking for. Not necessarily the one that we tow out there, so.
Yeah, no, I was just curious if we had put it out there.
Okay.
The temporary one moves, and I haven't seen the schedule recently, so I
Okay.
don't know when it was.
All right.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm asking, though, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we have a new director coming. I think that conversation, needs to be brought in with him at this point.
Okay, fair enough.
There are other areas, I was going to say that, thank you, Mayor. There are other areas that are of concern regarding stop, yield, speeding. So I've already had the conversation with the new director that is one of the things that he's going to have to address when he starts, is that traffic. We're obviously doing this, or presumably we're doing this project that we're doing the narrowing for the traffic calming, but we haven't really looked at the stop sign aspect. So that is something that we can add this stretch of that list of the other areas
Okay,
for that and evaluate it
thank you.
as part of the conversation.
Yeah, this just keeps coming up, and it's a matter of, making sure that if that's the way we're going to continue doing business, that we are able to communicate it in a way that's logical. And I think that would be the job of the director to come up with those national standards. Does it support safety? Does it not support safety? Those types of things. What we were told was that the changes that were made, and obviously this isn't based on a change, but again, there's other complaints and other concerns where we need to address some of those issues as well. We've all heard it on the campaign trail. That's one of the things that we really need to address in the city as a whole. Are we going to maintain this? Are we going to properly communicate it? How are we going to properly communicate it? I don't think a one-off thing is kind of what we want to do. Is city council voting on stop signs in this location, that location.
Well-
However, that being said, yes, we have to bring up concerns of constituents and make that aware.
The reason I brought it up now is because the whole street is getting redone anyway. So it's not like,
It's not going to change the construction of the street, however, I'm sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
right, but, I mean, this project is being done shortly, right? This summer, I think.
Yep.
Correct.
And it would be a nice time to address it. I think it's a pretty simple solution and make the residents along that street feel safer.
Yeah, Taji?
I think one of the most effective ways to calm traffic is street design. I think we can explore a stop sign or a speed sign or whatever. Like, those are things we could do at a later time. I understand your point of we could do it now. I'm most interested in the street design because I talked with the same constituents or same residents. You know, I travel that street all the time. I am hopeful that the narrowing of the street, I mean, I think our response as a city is we are narrowing the street and we believe that will meaningfully reduce speed. I don't know if there's anything else we could do with the design of the street because of just how it is today to further slow traffic. There are things you can do. You can bump out curbs, you could, roundabouts help, but I don't think anything additional is feasible with that street right now. I mean, is that fair? I mean.
Correct.
Okay, and so I'm just saying out loud, like, to address our residents' concerns, we're saying we're narrowing the street, we're hopeful that this will meaningfully reduce traffic, and we will also, if it doesn't, we can continue to have conversations of how we think about stop signs, how we think about speed signals, and maybe there are other things we can consider as well. But as far as like the actual construction of the street, I think this is, we're doing everything we can, which is just narrowing the street, and we'll see what that does.
All right, any other comments? All right, seeing no other comments, looking for a motion on this one.
I can make that motion.
All right, thank you, John.
I make a motion to approve the authorization of joint powers agreement with the City of New Hope for the 2024 utility reconstruction project.
All right, I'll second that. All members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right. Ben is here also to talk about asphalt in the utility reconstruction project. Ben?
Yep. So, as I told you, Louisiana Avenue from 27th up to 32nd, and then also the cul-de-sac in New Hope. This project contains 44 properties, 35 of which are residential and 9 are commercial. All of those are on the New Hope side of the street. Schedule up to date, we just opened bids back in March on the 11th. Today we're here to consider the contract. Construction will be starting in May, we anticipate, with a late fall completion. Bid results from that opening, Northwest Asphalt came in at the low bid of $2,799,294.48. Northwest Asphalt is a contractor that has worked in the city before, most recently on our 2022 project in roughly the same area of the city. Funding for the project combined with New Hope, we have $4,630,000. The Crystal portion that we have planned is $2,650,000. After bid opening and factoring in the professional services for the engineering, Crystal's cost will be estimated at $1,959,571.46, which came in $690,000 below our budget. Tonight, I am asking for a motion authorizing the contract for the 2024 utility reconstruction project. Any questions?
Yeah, go ahead, Raji.
I have a question.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So on the memo we were provided under project communication, first sentence says, after the council has awarded the contract, a letter will be sent to all the project properties notifying them of the award and the scaled back project. What does scaled back mean?
I apologize, that is a typo from a previous memo.
Got it. Thank you.
Jim?
I have a
Yeah, go ahead,
question.
Therese.
Where is the other project in Crystal that this company has worked on?
That was, so in 2022, we had Florida and 31st, how they kind of curve together, and then Edgewood, down between 29th and 30th, and then the Edgewood cul-de-sac that comes off of 32nd Avenue.
Okay. Wasn't that new? The cul-de-sac off of Edgewood, going north, you mean, right?
Nope, going south.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, my mistake. Okay.
All right, any others? Looking for a motion on this one? Go ahead, David.
I'll make a motion to award the contract for the 2024 utility reconstruction project.
All right, thank you. Second, John?
Second the motion.
All right. All members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right, Ben is still here. And we're going to talk about the lift station over at Perry.
Yep. So the Perry Avenue lift station is the last one in our system that needs the control panels to be upgraded. So the scope of this project will be to replace the outdated cabinet controls and improve our communication system. Currently, that's the last one that communicates via radio signal. We'll be upgrading to a Cradle Point, which is just wireless communications that connects in with our SCADA system, which easiest way to put it is that's the brains behind the operation. And then also improved safety by relocating our cabinet, which I will show you photos on the next slide. Our funding available for this project is $70,000 out of our sanitary fund, and total controls quote came in at $50,000, $50,709. So on the left is the current control panel at the Perry lift station. As you can see, the safety concern is the fact that our backs would be to the hatch, and quite often when we were at these lift stations, the hatch is open at the same time that we're working on the controls. And then on the right is the updated technology that we would be putting in. So with moving the control panel, we'll actually be moving it in the photo to the right and turning it around so that their back is never to the hatch when they have the panel open. So now I'm asking for a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the contract to replace the control systems at the Perry lift station.
All right, thanks, Ben. Questions for Ben on this one? Seeing none, looking for a motion. David?
I'll make a motion approving the replacement of the control system at the Perry sanitation sewer lift station.
Okay, looking for a second. Taji?
I'd like to second that.
All right, all members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Ben. All right, the council will consider first reading of an ordinance prohibiting the use of cannabis products in public places. Our city attorney, Troy Gilchrist, is here to address the council. Welcome, Troy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. Cannabis once again. So if you recall, when the recent legislation was adopted, one of the provisions as part of that bill was giving cities the authority to prohibit the use of cannabis in public places. Part of that legislation didn't define what public places are, instead defined what aren't public places. So minus these things that I listed in the memo, kind of the rest of the world is potentially public. When this issue first came to the council last summer, we had that discussion about what is your thought on this? One, of course, do you want to move forward with some sort of regulation on this? And two, obviously, then what should that look like? How would you define the kind of that universe of what it constitutes a public place? And so the council had discussion. Ultimately, and if I recall, the chief spoke to that as well, and wanting to try to keep a limited scope on what would be considered public, just to help cut down on interactions on private parking lots and things like that. And so at the time, in August of last year, the council adopted an interim ordinance to prohibit use in public places. And public places were defined as focused on parks, public parking lots, and your rights of way, so sidewalks, streets, that sort of thing. So the truly public places. But it was an interim ordinance. Stafford was directed within that ordinance to take a look at that issue and come back with some recommendations. So what you have before you is a proposal for a permanent ordinance placed in your code that essentially just codifies what was in the interim ordinance. So not attempting to expand beyond what you previously adopted, instead just saying, after looking at this and operating it since August of last year, the thought being that that's the appropriate scope to continue and document within your code. As we know and we've discussed, the rules on the cannabis law have not been defined yet. This may potentially impact, again, if they get into defining what some of these public places are. But this was actually in a different part of the law. It's not part of the cannabis chapter itself. So I think this one might have a little bit more shelf life, frankly, than almost anything else you do on cannabis. But we don't know until, we see what happens. But anyway, so what you have before you then is a proposed amendment to the code to add the prohibition on the use of cannabis products within the public places as defined in the ordinance. And this is up for consideration and first reading by the council. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Questions for Troy? Yeah, go ahead, John.
Do we currently have a ordinance prohibiting like smoking or vaping, smoking cigarettes or cigars, or vaping in public places?
I'm not aware of, Mr. Mayor and Council, I'm not aware of a general prohibition on that. So this is focused on cannabis
Just
at
on
this
cannabis
time.
only.
Now, keep in mind that when they created the cannabis law, they said you can't smoke this where you can't smoke cigarettes either. So there is some parity there under the Clean Indoor Air Act and buses and things like that. You can't smoke cannabis or use cannabis in vaporized or smoke form.
Okay. So basically 50 feet from buildings, and then any other public spaces, that would be consistent with other smoking products.
Right, yeah, the 144, the Clean Indoor Air Act, and there's some, I actually went down that rabbit hole a little bit. There are some others that talk about on school buses around schools and things like that, so they specifically call those out and say that applies to cannabis as well.
Yeah. John Sutter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. I wanted to add that, because I think this came up in the maps a little bit, the discussion of the buffer distances, is that cannabis is an intoxicating product, which makes it distinct from tobacco. It's more like alcohol, and so I think the reason for the interim ordinance in the first place was because it is an intoxicating product, it should be treated the same way in our parks and our sidewalks and so forth as alcohol is.
Yep.
If that helps.
Yep, thank you, John. Bless you. Any other questions? Go ahead, Taji.
So this applies to edibles, low potency.
Yeah, so Mr. Mayor, a cannabis product, I just took that right out of the statute. So it means any of the following: cannabis flower, cannabis products, lower potency hemp edibles. Right, so it's the whole hemp-derived consumer products. So really so much of this is just pulled right from the you may prohibit. Where we got a little creative is defining the world of what constitutes public.
Yep.
Everything else is pretty much just copied from the statute.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And then in the note we got via email and it was provided to us, there's just a comment about an administrative penalty versus a petty misdemeanor. Do you have information on what do we have an administrative penalty option? And what is that?
So, Mr. Mayor and Council, you do. You're a charter city that has administrative penalties authorized in your charter, and you do have that set up in your code as well. The reason it's listed in here as a petty misdemeanor, again, that's what the statute calls it. Do you have the option to go administrative? Yes, you could do that. I mean, just keep in mind, and perhaps I'll turn to John if you don't mind to talk about the difference, but you know, as a petty misdemeanor, my impression, and of course, the assistant chief can speak to this as well, is that's a law enforcement issuance, whereas administrative is more of a department-based review and issuance. So I don't know that if you want your you know, planning staff or, you know, going out issuing these citations. So, so I think that's an important difference. I viewed this more as a law enforcement issue than a staff issuing administrative citations, but.
Mr. Mayor, may I add to that? Thank you. Yeah, and actually, one of the biggest thing that pops into my head as the challenge for using administrative enforcement for this is that ultimately administrative enforcement goes against the property, and the city of Crystal is the property owner in the case of these places where it would be prohibited. So we'd be citing ourselves.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Could I call on the deputy chief? I'm just curious, you know, since we've had this ordinance for, what, over 6 months, I mean, are we hearing much about this? Are people calling about other people, you know, with their gummies in the park, or? Because I know, I mean, the chief last time, you know, there is something here about limiting unnecessary interactions, right? And so, just, could you just kind of maybe refresh us of your perspective, like what your perspective might be and things we should be considering?
Sure. Well, council members, mayor, you know, it's been a long-standing. This predates any THC legislation that we get random calls of somebody's smoking marijuana somewhere at Becker Park or in an apartment building or whatever. I mean, that call's been happening forever. I believe that call continues to be present, even though it's legal. I think, as the chief has shared, you know, our stake would be that certainly having it in ordinance is something that we should be thinking about, similar to we have rules in the park for saying that you can't smoke in the park. We're not going to wrestle people in the park when they're smoking a cigarette. We're not going to get into a use of force issue. We're not going to tase them. Our stance would be somewhat similar as it relates to marijuana. We'd escort you out of the park and say you're not welcome to be here. But we certainly would be nervous about trying to figure out ways to create encounters with people over something that the state has decided is legal. And so do I think we've seen an uptick? No, I think it happens and probably will continue to happen, those calls of people who are bothered by it. And, you know, we've asked staff, just like we've asked them for years with smoking, with alcohol in the park or whatever, to do a good job of using the gift of gab to move the problem along. I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Yeah, that's helpful. So with that, in the ordinance, you know, the penalty, we're saying subject up to a fine, you know, not more than $300. So just to play this out, I mean, if you encounter someone, you know, or, you know, you kind of inform them, escort them out, are they going to be fined right then and there? Or is it more like a repeat offender or something? Or how do we actually think about this penalty happening?
Well, anybody who talks to me knows I don't spend a lot of time in the what-if world because it's so circumstantial. The reality is this, my opinion, and I think I could speak for the chief and most of the department, would be having this ordinance in place as a tool. Someone calls and says someone is got a bag of gummies or is smoking a joint in the park. And we get there and make contact, we're going to say, hey, can't do that in the park, knock it off, move along. And they do, great. They don't, we maybe start saying that, okay, it's time to leave the park. It does give us another tool for other things that are going on, right? That whatever is happening is turning into more of a ruckus. Well, here's a tool that we can use to say, yeah, we're going to escalate this. So any person that we have contact with, would I expect that the officer is going to cite them for cannabis use in the park? I'd be pretty surprised if most of our officers would have a palate for that, especially on someone who's cooperative. In that situation, you didn't know it's legal, you thought you could use it, whatever. If you want to make this a thing, then the ordinance really gives the opportunity, okay, well then it's a thing. Does that help give some context?
Yeah, that's really helpful for me. Thank you for talking through that. I think, you know, if we adopt this, which I think I'm in favor of, I would hope that's how we approach it in real life. You know, I think there's going to be a season of informing, educating folks of, hey, can't do this in the park. Maybe folks think that's like a fun thing. Hey, let's go smoke in the park or whatever. Well, no, you can't in the city of Crystal. So I just hope there's some education there. And then to your point, I mean, this does give some other tools if that kind of initial interaction doesn't go well. So I don't like the idea of someone calling from their kitchen window, I think someone has a thing of gummies, and then we fine them $300, you know, with no conversation, no education. I don't love that.
Yeah, and I guess, I mean, a couple thoughts would be, you know, I mean, it's a livability issue for other people, right? That to me would be the crux of an ordinance like this. So to be very candid, what I don't see us doing anything with is someone's walking down Douglas Drive on the sidewalk and they're smoking something and they walk by someone and someone smells it and they call. Technically it would be illegal. I don't see us engaging in that at all, to be candid. To me, it's more, where's the impact on everybody else? So you're at the park, there are people around, there are kids around. State statute actually talks about use in front of kids. I mean, so that to me really is more where that would be a usable piece, but all of the places identified in the proposed ordinance are areas that it makes sense to have them in there, but candidly, the way that's going to play out, I would be curious to know, none of our officers are interested in that engagement as you're walking down the sidewalk. It's a negative engagement that we don't really need to have because you're not impacting anybody. And so to the point of edibles or beverages, you know, the issue is when you're impaired and acting crazy. The fact that you have, John has regular gummy bears and you have different gummy bears, but you're just at the park. Again, I would see no reason for our officers really from an engaging with this community standpoint to really feel any need to engage in that or change that behavior at that time.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? Thanks, Deputy Chief. All right. No other questions? Looking for a motion. Taji?
I'd like to make a motion to adopt the ordinance amending the Crystal City Code to prohibit the use of cannabis products in public places.
All right. Tracy?
I will second that.
All right. All members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Then this will come back before the council for second reading and adoption and later. I have in the memo, but April 16th.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Troy. All right, next, let's see, John Sutter, our Community Development Director, will talk about some, our second reading of the ordinance that we did last. Go ahead, John.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. No presentation for this because we went through that at the previous meeting. So there's two actions before you tonight. Number one is to approve second reading and adoption of the ordinance amending the zoning map to add the airport zones, which are already in effect per the airport zoning ordinance that you added to the code as an appendix earlier this year. But now we need to take this more formal action to add them to the zoning map. And then the second item is to adopt the resolution approving the publication by summary language. So two separate motions, those two items tonight, and we request your approval.
All right. Yeah, any questions on this? Go ahead, David.
Have you had any contact with JASB or the MAC about anything since this?
Well, the JASB is disbanded now.
Okay.
But we have actually, we sent your letter to MnDOT Commissioner and copied the MAC Commissioner. MnDOT did reach out to city staff. We had a virtual meeting with them and they asked for some more information. I don't want to get too much into what the contents of the meeting were, but I think it's safe to say that our concerns about the JASB process and the way it kind of went for the cities, we're not alone in feeling some of those concerns, but they certainly wanted to look at some different ways to address those concerns versus the statutory change that was suggested in the council's letter. So we're kind of in a back and forth with MnDOT staff right now, and we'll see where that goes. because ultimately MnDOT is the one that has to approve airport zoning ordinances. And so they are really the key people, and we found our meeting with them very helpful.
Great.
That is good. Good question, thank you. All right, any other questions? Seeing none, we got two motions. Let's start with first. David?
So I make a motion to approve an ordinance amending the official zoning map to add airport safety zones.
All right, thank you. Looking for a second. Tracy?
I will second that.
All right, all members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Did you want to go ahead with the second?
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you.
So I make a motion approving the summary language for publication of ordinance number 2024-01.
Tracy?
I will second that.
All right. All members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right. That's our meeting for today. We do have a few announcements. City Council will hold a work session on Thursday, April 11th at 6:30 p.m. in the council chambers here at City Hall and via Zoom. There will be a ribbon cutting at 111 Willow Bend on Saturday, April 13th to celebrate the opening of the new Crystal business Hope Liquor. The next city council meeting is Tuesday, April 16th at 7 p.m. and that's available via Zoom as well. Crystal Police Department's open house is going to be Saturday, April 27th, and that's from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., and that's at 4141 Douglas Drive. The city council and work sessions are open to the public. This is a reminder. Current and previous meetings are available online for your listening or viewing pleasure. Any other announcements from the council? All right. Those who are viewing live, just keep in mind we do have the pickup, the waste pickup for Crystal, and you need to see the website for when your pickup area is.
Yeah, because I'll add, I made the mistake, I missed the deadline today, or yesterday, whatever it was. So double check your date, there's different dates based on where you live in the city, so take advantage of this. It's
Yeah.
really nice way to clear some clutter.
That's the one you don't want to miss.
I know, I'm so mad. I'm so mad at myself.
Okay. All right. Anything else? All right. With that, looking for a motion. John?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Therese?
I'll second it.
All right. All members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. All right. We'll see you soon.